Good afternoon and welcome to Pretty Petty Politics. Today, we are doing some wonderful things, very impromptu, but we thought it was especially important to discuss the redistricting that is taking place here in the state of Texas. So if you would, go ahead and begin to share this with your family and friends by sharing it to your Facebook or your YouTube page. If you have the YouTube link, share it on your Twitter, share it via text, or messaging on Facebook, but please make sure you're sharing this information. The information that we will bring to you today is highly important and highly impactful, not just on the lives of Texans, but on the lives of Americans. Last year, during the 2020 presidential election, there was also the U.S. Census. The U.S. Census happens every 10 years. And from the data collected from the census, it directly impacts congressional representation in Congress. Texas has increased population, so much so that we have 2 new congressional districts that will begin to be a part of our collection. So we will ultimately have 40 members of Congress, whereas we've only had 38. Of course, 2 of those being our U.S. senators. Because of the redistricting that must take place to add those 2 new districts, that's what brings us here today. Our Senator Joan Huffman, who is a Houston area senator, she is the chair of the redistricting committee that proposes the maps. The map that they have proposed is highly insensitive, not just to you and I and other Texans, but also to Americans. 95% of the growth in the state of Texas was made up of people of color. Those stats we will show you throughout today's conversation. So I want you to go ahead and just begin to share, so that this information can get out. If you can't stay and watch and be a part of the comments, the live comments, that's fine, but share it to your page so that others will see it in their on their timeline through the algorithm. It's very important that you share and please like this broadcast. And also make sure that you're following Pretty Petty Politics both on Facebook and Twitter, also on Instagram and YouTube. This is streaming live to Facebook and YouTube. Additionally, today we are sharing this with the Houston branch of the NAACP. This is something that we've never done before, but the information is too important. We want to make sure that this information is out. So I would like to thank the executive director of the Houston branch, Mrs. Yolanda Smith, for seeing the importance of this broadcast and not having it just limited to Pretty Petty Politics community. So without further delay, let me introduce our guests. Today's guests are 2 very important young leaders here in the city of Houston. We have Markia Bordeaux. She is an attorney here in the Houston area, and she also chairs the Civic Engagement Committee for the Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals. We also have Reverend Prince Bryant, Superintendent Prince Bryant, who is also a member. Both of these are members of the NAACP. He's also a superintendent with the Church of God in Christ. Well-respected leaders, not just in our communities, but throughout the country. So I want to thank you both for taking the time to join us for this very impromptu but very necessary conversation as we discuss redistricting here in the state of Texas. So I'm going to take away that ticker. I'm being my own producer today, so y'all just bear with me. So I want to show you this map. Share screen. I want to show you a map of what it looks like, the before and after of Texas, right? I'm going the wrong way with my camera. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to show you this screen share window. There we go. Can y'all see that map?
Yes.
So the map on the left shows our current, what things look like today. The map on the right shows what is being proposed. What is happening for the next 10 years, this is the proposal from 2020 to 2030, is for less representation for communities that have ordinarily been blue. Now, we know a lot of this is white, but because politics is used in America is red and blue, they don't show the white areas where no one lives. So those very rural areas where we have very little population. But as you can see in our southern portion of Texas, today is very blue. And with the growth that we've had over the last 10 years, that blue should really be expansive. However, that's not reflective in what is being proposed. In fact, what you see is a system what is known as cracking, which is a part of gerrymandering. That's when legislators go in and they crack up districts made of people of color, generally Black communities and Hispanic communities, and they crack them up and disperse them into other districts, breaking up their so-called stronghold in terms of representation. And what that does, that removes representatives who are empathetic or in support of the concerns of those constituents. So you can see that very clearly here on the screen. Wrong slide. Here on this slide, you can see the numbers. This is what our census data provides. Our census data shows us, let me take this down. Our census data shows us where the growth is. You can see the group, you can see what they were in 2010, and you can see what they are, what they were in 2020. Every group that has significantly grown have been groups made up of people of color. All right. You see the Asian community increased 5.3%. You see the Black community increase. You see the Hispanic community increase. And you see the numbers. Excuse me. I use the percentages as the increase, and that was incorrect. It's the numbers that's the increase. The percentage makes up the percentage of the actual Texas population. So 39% of Texans, I think it's 39.7% of Texans are white people today. 39.2% of Texans are Hispanic today. 11.8% of Texans are Black, and 5.3% of Texans today are Asian. All right. But you can see the increase in the numbers. There were 557,000 new Black residents that moved into the state of Texas within the past 10 years, yours truly included. There were 613,000 Asians that moved into the state of Texas in the past 10 years. There were 1.9 million Hispanics that moved into the state of Texas over the last 10 years, whereas there were only 187,000 white people that moved into the state of Texas. This information is data from the Texas Tribune directly, but it's reflective of the 2020 census. It's important that I let you know where the data is located so you can find it for yourself instead of me just saying, go Google it. I'm telling you where you can find it. Now, I know I've said a lot, but now I want to go to my guests. So having seen those numbers, understanding how those groups generally vote, what say you? Mr. Bryant, you can go first.
Thank you. And I like your nomenclature here, the pretty professor. Always good to see you, Miss Julie, and share the stage with Attorney Bordeaux. I think this is a very necessary conversation. Thank you for inclusion. I think that you have given a good synopsis and kind of overarching view of these numbers. The bottom line is that the government is supposed to be reflective of the people, not oppressive to the people. And to see this type of engineering and blatant racism and disenfranchisement just reflects the general trajectory of Texas. Uh, Removing the straight ballot tickets, removing a lot of the partisan offices for statewide elections and local municipalities are all designed to kind of blur the lines, reduce participation, minimize the voices of the marginalized, and it's very disheartening. It's very disheartening to see it in plain sight. That there are people who do not care about Texas, but only those that have special interests, the wealthy, the well connected. And so it's indicative of where Texas is and where Texas is moving. When you have almost 2 million more Hispanics, and both Asians and African Americans are right around 500,000. That's basically 3 million more Texans that are black and brown, that are being disproportionately disenfranchised. It's a sad day in Texas. And I think it speaks to the larger issue of messaging, that there are so many people who are disconnected from the process, that are not voting, that are not active. I think Trump has forced all of us to be more engaged in the political sphere. And so I think messaging is important. I think the way we present information is important. And it's not just voting is critical, but it's not just voting. It's donating to campaigns. It's being holding elected officials accountable, whether that's text messages, phone calls, emails, letters. We have to be more active in holding these elected officers' feet to the fire. And on both sides of the equation, both Republicans and Democrats. Part of the problem in Austin is that the Democrats are not loyal. They break rank constantly. They make side deals. And so there is a general apathy around what everyday Texans are concerned about. And so you mentioned it earlier. It's proposed, and I don't want to be a mic hog, but I'm very concerned about this. And and I'll just add this. I know it's not a part of your overall exchange, but to see us being leapfrogged by the Hispanic community is concerning to me, and I think we have to take a hard look at how abortion is impacting our numbers. There's no way that African Americans in Texas should be less than the national average, and so that's very concerning to me.
Muted. Okay. I also think that, and to that last point about our numbers, last year was very difficult to get people counted. Not just because of the pandemic, but the mistrust that people have of the government.
Agreed.
So we know this is what the census data is. We probably want to add more, but we have to go by the data, right? But we know that a lot of people just do not participate in the census, and we have to be very honest about that and look at how that impacts us for resources in our communities.
Absolutely.
So on and so forth. Now, as we look at redistricting, and I'll share that map once more, as we look at redistricting and how that, I don't know where it went, hold on, and how that will impact us. Now I can share. Sorry, I can't talk and share at the same time. As we look at that map and how it will impact us, it's very important for those of us in the Houston area to understand the heaviest pockets of our Black community here in the Houston area live in congressional districts 9 and 18. Congressional District 9 is Al Green, and
Mm.
Congressional District 18 is Sheila Jackson Lee. These districts are at risk with this proposed map, this proposed redistricting that is coming from the state Senate. It is important that constituents of those districts speak out against this, and it's more than just a Facebook post, and it's more than just this live stream that I'm so grateful that you all have joined us for. um it's going to require you to open your mouths and speak with your elected officials, those persons that represent you in the Texas legislature. So if you would, right now, if you're home watching this, I want you to go to I want you to Google who represents me on just Google that, and it'll bring up a website for the state of Texas. You put in your address and your zip code, and it will let you know who all your elected officials are. So it will show you who your Texas state senator is and who your Texas state representative is. That's really important. I want you all to do that. And then I want you to contact them. They all have social media platforms, they all have chief of staff, they all have local offices. And today and tomorrow, I want you to flood them and let them know how you want them to vote on this redistricting. Okay, these are your employees, these elected officials work for you. Okay, and it's very important that you let them know that, listen, your job is on the line, because if my vote is impacted behind this redistricting, so is your job. And you have to make that very clear to them,
Right.
extremely clear to them. So I just wanted to make sure we shared that, who represents me, and that should be an S on represents. But it's really important that you know who those persons are. Okay, it's really important that you know who those persons are, who represents me. You can find that on Google, and you just put in your address, and it will show you who those elected officials are. Attorney Bordeaux, I want to thank you for joining us. I know you've just started your tenure as the civic engagement chair with Hall YP. You've been working for several years in that organization. Tell us, what are some of the things that Hall is looking to do, Hall YP is looking to do um, in the next several months as we prepare for the 2022 elections.
Right. So thank you, July, for having me. And I don't even have to go after Mr. Bryant because he said everything that I wanted to say, and he said it very well. So thank you for that. But yes, I'm the Civic Engagement Chair for the Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals. And obviously, as a Civic Engagement Chair, our main focus is areas of civic engagement like voter outreach, voter education, having those standing meetings and conversations with our elected officials as it relates to redistricting, as it relates to all of the policies and laws that are really being implemented that affect our community. And so, of course, the main focus for my committee is continuing the strong voter education, voter registration initiatives. We knew that after the 2020 election, with the response that we saw in states of like Georgia and Arizona, which is, they flipped to blue. And of course we're a nonpartisan organization, but we knew that there would be a response from the Texas legislature with the amount of outreach that happened for Democratic voters. And so we knew that there were going to be laws and policies that were proposed and more than likely implemented that would restrict voting rights. And that's what we're seeing with these congressional district maps. We saw it with the Senate Bill 1 with the voter restrictions, and we saw it with Senate Bill 8 with the abortion ban. And so it's like we're having to be very reactive to a lot of the policies that are being implemented and come up with like creative ways to combat voter restrictions and voter suppression, which has been an ongoing thing. So continuing our voter outreach, we just partnered with the League of Women Voters this past yesterday, for the Women's March. We registered about 65 people that we could count. There's a whole bunch more, I think, that were registered that we just couldn't count. But it's just continuing those voter outreach and registration initiatives to really educate people on why voting is important. And Mr. Bryant brought up a good point about lack of turnout from predominantly Black communities and Hispanic communities. And so we want to just come up with those creative ways to keep people engaged in the process, educate them on, the candidates that are running, why it's so important to be involved. And I don't think a lot of people know about the redistricting issues. And I think that's an area that I'm not super knowledgeable on either. And so it's having conversations like this, putting on programs to really educate people about how central voting is to our everyday life. And so that's what we're doing. And on top of just the general programs that we always do, working with our elected officials. And this isn't really related to redistricting, but an area that I definitely want to steer our committee in is working with the Population for Economic Empowerment, which is an area that Hall already does. And I think an area of that is criminal expunction. So you have a lot of individuals who can't enter the workforce and they can't receive certain benefits and be part of certain programs, unfortunately, when you have certain criminal records. And so I really want to partner with like the DA's office, whether that's in Harris County or Fort Bend, to provide expunction opportunities for people to get their criminal records, expunged and cleaned up. That way they can enter the workforce and be able to vote and be able to engage in the process that normal people who haven't been affected can. So I say all that to say I'm just really happy to be a part of this conversation and want to talk more today about what an organization like the Urban League can do to move forward and educate our members on redistricting and all of the issues we're facing.
Absolutely. And I thank you for that. And as the second VP of the Houston branch of the NAACP, and both of you are members of the NAACP, we do partner. So we mirror what Markia just shared, what Attorney Bordeaux just shared. I think it's really important to see that unity from these two historic organizations,
right.
Our two oldest civil rights organizations in this country, to see that partnership continue to grow and expand here in Houston as we focus on voting and voting rights and protecting that. And as an aside to what she just said about expungements, we have Damian Walker, who has been an awesome partner assisting us, the NAACP and other organizations around Southeast Texas, with getting those who have completed their sentence, meaning their probation, with getting those citizens reestablished as voters, whether for the first time or returning their voter status, so that they too can participate in this democracy, this thing that we hold so dear, known as our democracy. So thank you, Markia. I look forward to continuing the work that we've been doing, both as NAACP and Houston Area Urban League and Urban League Young Professionals, so that we can take care of our community. I know the Kojic Church will continue to work with us to do voter registration initiatives around Southeast Texas, where the Houston area and suburbs. So I want to thank you both for the work that you do in that regard. So I know some people are wanting to know how they can be a part of the hearings tomorrow. So as you see on the ticker below, you can submit your written comments to that website, and I can put it in the comments later. If one of you awesome viewers could type that link into the comments, that would be perfect. So it's senate.texas.gov/redistricting comment/. Okay. Again, it's senate.texas.gov redistricting comment / put that in the comments for us. So if there's anyone who would like to submit a written comment for the hearings take place tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. If there's anyone who would like to submit a comment, you can. Additionally, you can go to Austin. The hearings begin at 9 a.m. What's the Senate building? Is it the Reagan Senate building? Well, just go to the Senate, not building, but go to the hearing tomorrow. You can find that online as well. The Senate hearings begin at 9 a.m. tomorrow, Monday morning, 10/4/2021, in Austin. All right. You're gonna have to wear a mask. You're gonna have to go through security. You should pack you some crackers with some peanut butter because you're gonna need the energy. You're gonna need some snacks, and you're gonna need some cash for parking because you gotta pay for parking in the Capitol, or else you will be ticketed, and you don't want one of those tickets. Yeah. I know there are some buses that are leaving from the Houston area, going that way. For more information on that, you can I guess write it in the comments, and after the show I can go back in and try to answer some of those comments and questions regarding the hearing tomorrow. This morning, if you wanted to virtually participate, you would have had to register by 9 a.m. this morning. So the virtual option has expired, but there is still an opportunity for you to go in person to Austin, as well as submit written comments. You can also, like we said, contact your state senator directly. So like for me, my state senator is John Whitmire. So I should contact him. Your state senator may be Boris Miles or Royce West. I know I have a lot of Dallas folks on this live. Royce West may be your senator. If you're like in the Pasadena area and you're watching this, it's probably Larry Taylor. So just know who your state senator is, and then blow their phones, their social media, their email, blow it up, let them know. Because again, these are your employees. These are people who work for you, and when people work for you and they're not doing their job, they get fired, right? Okay.
And I will add why, just to support what you're saying, July, why it's so important for, the constituents to make noise at these public hearings is, we went to Austin for the Senate Bill 1, which they eventually passed, unfortunately, but we went to Austin, and I'm in, Boris Miles, he's my senator, and he got us a bus. Like, we went down there. And it was an all-day event, so please pack your lunch, water, be prepared because it's a very long day. But it's important because you want to put that information on the record so that it's clear that there's not support for this redistricting map that's been proposed and may more than likely pass because unfortunately Republicans have the numbers in the Senate to pass it, or in the legislature to pass it. But you want to put that your objections on the record, and like July said, you want to make sure that your representatives know that you're not interested in any proposed redistricting. Like, we're good where we are. We actually need to expand it for communities of color. But it almost felt that people, when we went for the voting rights public comment portion, you could tell people were kind of defeated. Like, it felt like, why are we here, giving public testimony when we know the outcome is more than likely going to pass. But it's just important to still engage in that process. And I think that's the part of civic engagement, is just continuing to fight the good fight, get in the good trouble, like John Lewis would say or said, and, put it on the record and make it clear that even though this may pass, unfortunately, these senators and representatives, they have a duty to their constituents, and not all of us agree. And so I just want to encourage people definitely to go to Austin if you can. It's a great experience too, to be involved in that process and be up close and personal with your representatives and let them know and look them in the eye and kind of, hold them accountable, even though they're not really representing us how they should.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Mr. Bryant.
Yeah, and I'll just add that this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And that anytime you engage, you're familiarizing yourself with the process.
Right.
And so it's not just this battle today. There'll be another battle tomorrow and the next month and the next year. And the more you can become fluid, understanding what's happening, you may see other opportunities to participate and offer yourself to serve. The goal is to engage you and one other person. And I'd like to just echo what our attorney and our professor is sharing with you is that write the statement, submit it, and identify one or two other persons to make statements with you. And even if you're making the same statement, the fact that it's coming from multiple people, it will be a benefit. And if everyone watching today would identify two or three other people to do it, let's all do a little group FaceTime and do it together. Take 10 minutes out of your day and write that letter and submit it. You can make a difference, not in just this moment, but like we say, it's a marathon. And tomorrow you can make the difference for sure.
Absolutely. And for my sisters and brothers out there in the Katy area, it's probably your senator that is leading this charge with this redistricting map, Senator Huffman. So make sure you let her know, you give her a piece of your mind, how you feel about what is being proposed. If you saw on our Facebook page, and hopefully you all are following Pretty Petty Politics, because Pretty Petty Politics prides itself in putting out very viable information to the community. We put a post out this morning, and part of the post talks about a documentary named Rigged, Rigged. And in that documentary, it looks at different things that have happened over the last several years, as far back as 2010, or maybe even before that, how state legislatures immediately, for example, after the election of President Barack Obama, during that midterm election in 2010, state legislatures did a lot of things to chop up districts, including the state of Texas. You know, they use what we call cracking when it came to gerrymandering. So I do want to encourage you to go check out Rigged. It's available on YouTube. The link is now in the comments. Check that out. Watch that, especially around like the 11.5-minute mark, so you can see the portion that really focuses on what has happened in the state of Texas. That example is from the Dallas area, Dallas-Fort Worth area, the importance of it, right? So you can see it in black and white, what that looks like, how that affects voting districts that have historically been made up of Black and brown, or Black or brown communities, and how they've been gutted and split apart to take away that power. So I want to encourage you to look at that. Also, you know, this weekend we saw marches across the country, women's marches, people coming out against the very restrictive bill passed by the Texas legislature. No matter how you feel about abortion, you should know a woman should have control of her body. We are right now in the middle of a pandemic, and people are saying they should have control of whether or not they should wear a mask so that they can protect themselves and others, or not, from this very deadly virus. And just like you should have that right to determine whether or not you should have to wear a mask, a woman should have the right to control her body. We don't tell men they should have this, that when they're born, they should have vasectomies until they're 25 or married. We don't do that, because that would never make sense to tell a man what to do with his body. So how dare we tell women? Now, I say all of that to tell you this. Voting matters. Elections have consequences. And this is not just about, and I want y'all to hear me clear. Let me lean in. This is not just about abortion. People will tell you that, and that you caught up in that, but this is about your privacy, okay? And we all know we got everybody all up in our business because we have these devices. So this is not just about privacy, though. This is about population. And looking at these numbers once again, let's see, how can I go to it? Looking at those numbers once again, numbers don't lie. And there are some people who are very afraid of these increases, okay? They're very afraid of these increases. And so, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Next, I want to shift gears, some information, things that could be beneficial to you. There is a rally this Thursday in the Houston area. I want to thank the Black Women of Greater Houston, PAC. They have a call to action all week long and a rally. I'll post this to the Pretty Petty Politics story. So you got to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, but I'll add this to our story. But it's a call to action. So they want to encourage you to submit comments. They are encouraging you to go to Austin if you can, no matter where you are in the state of Texas. If you get to Austin, great. If you can't get to Austin tomorrow morning, you have social media. You have some kind of way to, not social media, you have email. You can contact your elected officials in Austin and let them know. Give them a piece of your mind, you know, to stop this gerrymandering. And then on Thursday, they have a call to action rally that starts at 5 p.m. It's a pre-rally featuring Mayor Sylvester Turner. And at 6 o'clock, the rally begins. And this is a fight to maintain the 18th and 9th congressional districts. The 18th congressional district is led by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and the 9th congressional district is led by Congressman Al Green. They need your support, okay? They need your support, not for them, but for those districts. For those districts
Absolutely.
to remain standing, for them not to be gutted and busted up, not for them to be cracked because of gerrymandering. And I just think it's really important that we acknowledge that. And then I think that might be it. I'm gonna stop sharing. Go ahead, Prince.
Yeah, before you go to the next point, and I really wanted to talk about that abortion piece, but as relates to these districts, and I'm trying to be politically correct on other people's platform, but there's always a tendency to whitewash Black history. And even when you look back at the predominantly Black schools that were being closed during HISD,
Yep.
they were all historical Black icons.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is to whitewash history, that all of the Black leaders and Black achievers that schools have been named after historically, your Jack Yates, your M.B. Smileys, these are Black legends, Black heroes, and the attempt is to remove that from the landscape as if Black and brown have never achieved or been successful. And so this is also being played out not just in the educational sphere, but also in the political sphere. These are historical Black legislations and districts that have produced some of the Black heroes of our time, from Barbara Jordan,
Mickey Leland,
and my man that crashed into the side of the mountain in Africa they never found. I can't think of his name, escapes me.
that was Mickey Leland.
Oh yeah, Mickey Leland, right, thank you. And so many others who have done so many things for the Black community. It's an attempt to, again, to erase our history and to rewrite history. The major demographic in this country has a tendency to be revisionist historians. And so this is not just about this moment having voice in the Capitol to champion current matters and future matters. This is also about preserving African American legacy in that body as well. So this is very critical. This is very important. And just to echo the professor, the pretty professor, with a new hairstyle and everything, that we must vote. Voting is critical, and we have to read, and I think it falls on us, both legal, education, and clergy. It falls on us to repackage the messaging around voting, because we're losing the messaging battle. And then, of course, part of that messaging has to be local politics matter more than presidential politics.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to shift gears and just talk about how big of a deal this is, the deal of gerrymandering, because a lot of people just they don't know. They know it was a key term on a civics test whenever they took civics or political science or government, right? But gerrymandering is very real. And let me tell you how serious of a matter it is. Yes, I just went there. This is a very serious matter. If someone, I mentioned Damian Walker earlier, we talked about expungements, we talked about people returning home from prison, completing their sentence, including their probation and being registered to vote. But what I want people to know, and hear me clear, I want y'all to lean in with your good ear. My right ear is my good ear. Lean in with your good ear and hear this. When someone is in prison, most prisons are not in urban areas, right? And if someone commits a crime in an urban area, they're shipped out to a rural area in prison, okay? And that rural area, the population of that rural area includes those persons who are incarcerated in that prison, okay? So when the census is taken, so listen, when the census is taken, those persons who are citizens of, let's say, Dallas,
Rusk County, right? Rusk County.
Let's say they're citizens of Dallas County, right?
Okay.
Where's the prison located?
Rusk.
Okay, so they're citizens of Dallas County, born and raised, but now they're counted in the census of Rusk County because that's where they're incarcerated. When the census is taken, the census not only determines your districts and the voting, it also determines where resources go. And so these very rural communities that would generally be rural, they receive funding based on the people who are in prison. And let's say my prison sentence is only 4 years. I'm back in Dallas County now, but the resources that should be accounted for me are going to another place, okay, that I never have any connection to beyond those 4 years that I was locked up, okay? That is called prison gerrymandering. And it's a very big deal, okay? And it is impacting our communities greatly, okay? It's not something that we talk about enough, but I want you to take your time to just Google some prison gerrymandering and understand the impactfulness of that and why certain legislators are so strategic in how they crack these districts and they draft these redistricting bills. Again, I would implore you to watch the documentary Rigged on what's that, on YouTube. It's in the comments. Make sure you watch that. It's really important that we have the opportunity to discuss these things with you, to talk about gerrymandering, to talk about voter registration. It's very important that we take this time to talk with you about it. If you need assistance, you can reach out to any of the organizations that were named today from the Houston branch NAACP. Of course, you can reach out to the Houston NAACP. They're both on Facebook and Instagram. Their website is, I should know this by heart, www.nacphouston.org.
Right.
All right. Yeah. So make sure you reach out to the Houston branch of the NAACP. Make sure you reach out to the Houston Area Urban League and Young Professionals. All of these organizations have social media platforms. You can follow us online. You can follow Pretty Petty Politics. You can follow Mr. Brian, I'm sure he puts out a
Houston,
lot of good information,
that's right,
but
that's right.
let's just make sure that we're not keeping this information to ourselves, because it's easy to soak up information and to never squeeze it out on somebody else. And we need to make sure we're sharing this with our hairstylists, our barbers, our parents, our children, our neighbors, so that we can take back our democracy that has been continuously being stolen from us since the 1860s, when Black men first were able to register to vote, even before the 15th Amendment. Okay. So we need to make sure that we're doing our part to honor them and those who have fought before us throughout the 20th century, and those of us who continue to fight today to protect democracy in this country. So I want to thank my guest today, Attorney Markia Bordeaux and
Thank
Mr.
you.
Prince Bryant. I thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this very impromptu conversation with Pretty Petty Politics. Again, this is season 5, episode 2. I want to thank the NAACP Houston Branch Executive Director and all officers and president of the Houston branch of the NAACP for being great community investors and stakeholders that help do this work, and all of you for watching and sharing. Any last words from our guests?
I'll just, remind everyone that tomorrow is the voter registration deadline in the state of Texas, and then election day is November 2nd. So if you're not registered, if you don't know your status, you can go to votetexas.gov for the state of Texas. And if you're in Harris County, it's harrisvotes.com to pull a sample ballot to learn about what's on the ballot, which I believe is just a couple of constitutional changes, but I don't think it's any actual elections for elected officials. But just register to vote, make sure you vote. And then I will, if you don't mind, July, do a little shameless plug for the Urban League. We have our first general body meeting back in person. Thank God we're back in person. So it'll be on October 12th at the Urban League downtown building. So you can follow the Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals on Facebook or Instagram for that information, or you can go to hallyp.org to learn more. But it is titled State of the County. So we are going to have our county attorney, we're going to have our district attorney's office, and we're going to have our elections administrator, Isabel Longoria, to have the same conversation around voting, response, criminal justice reform, and all of those big issues that are going to take us into the 2022 election. So everyone's welcome to come, and hope you can come and support. So, and thank you for having me, July. I appreciate it.
You're absolutely welcome. Mr. Bryant.
Always a joy and pleasure to exchange thoughts with you, Professor Julie. You're one of my favorite people in the city. Thank you for the invitation. And pleasure to meet you, Attorney Bordeaux. I think the immortal words of Dr. King is, when good people do nothing, evil wins. And I just want to echo the words of our attorney. Please, not only if you're registered to vote, but register 2 or 3 other people. Encourage someone to register to be a part of this election process. There are 8 Texas proposed amendments on the ballot. These are very serious amendments. We probably need to do another show next Sunday on these amendments that going to impact and affect you directly. I think we were asleep at the wheel on Bill 1 and Bill 8. But we need to be significantly more proactive and aggressive around these constitutional amendments on the ballot and for November 2nd. Redistricting, we have to put up a fight. Government is designed to respect numbers. And so we must have some show of force at the Capitol on tomorrow. The website to make those written statements is already on the screen. Please go there, encourage 2 other people to do that as well. Thank you again. I look forward to the next time.
Absolutely. And I don't know about next Sunday, but we definitely will have a show with You are more than welcome to come, and we'll be inviting some others to come in and talk about those proposed amendments that will be on the ballot in November. These are amendments to the Texas State Constitution of 1876. That is the actual name of our seventh Constitution, but that is our current Constitution here in the state of Texas. I know I'm sounding like a professor.
You do.
I'm ready for lecture tomorrow, right?
Right.
But it's really important, again, that we are aware of these things and that we are sharing this information. Once again, I'm going to share this. We'll close with the sharing of the call to action by the Black women of Greater Houston's PAC, call to action and rally on the 7th at 5 p.m. to maintain the 18th and 9th congressional districts. This is a very serious matter. It's very important and critical to Texans, to Houstonians, and to Americans that we preserve and protect these two very historic districts. These are two very important districts. These are two very important elected officials. I'm just going to say it. Sheila Jackson Lee and Al Green, they go hard for Houstonians. I know people you can feel how you want to feel about them personally, but when it comes to showing up, they show up. If you have a need and you reach out, they will help you meet that need. I know firsthand, I've seen it for myself. I've seen them show up places where I didn't even know they were invited, and I've seen them get busy. And it gave me an opportunity to look at the naysayers and say, how do you explain this? You know, so not that I'm campaigning for either one, because I can't vote for neither one, but I can say that these are two districts. It's bigger than the candidates. Let me say that. It's bigger than the candidates. It's about these two districts that are made up of constituents that look like me. I have worked in both the 9th and the 18th district. I worked at Thurgood Marshall High School in Missouri City several years ago, as well as Texas Southern University, which is in the 18th, and Thurgood Marshall High School, which is in the 9th. I know these communities. I know the leaders and the residents of these communities, and they need us to help them protect those congressional districts. So, if you will, submit a written comment using the website that is ticking below. It's very critical that we do this, that we protect democracy here in the state of Texas, so that we can protect it here in these United States of America. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for joining us today. I thank you for both the guests who joined us. I thank you all for tuning in. I want my guests to stay in the studio. Don't leave once the live ends. But I want to encourage each of you to find 2 or 3 other voters here in Texas, or residents, because kids are constituents as well. They're counted in those numbers, that data that force this redistricting, which happens every 10 years. But submit those comments. I'm going to keep that ticker up. It is super duper important that we submit those comments, that we speak out against this proposed map by Senator Huffman, Joan Huffman of the West Houston, Katy area. Make sure that we are addressing this. We are speaking with our elected officials. You can go to Who Represents Me on Google. There's a form that will populate. You just put in your information and it will reveal who your elected officials are. Please, if you're in a sorority, a fraternity, a business owner with the email database, share this information, get the word out, because this is going to impact everybody. And the last thing we ever need is for someone to say, why you ain't tell me? I'm telling you now. So thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. We will be doing a show on the John's Law that's dealing with prostitution and solicitation. We'll be doing a show on the upcoming amendments for the November election. So Until next time, we thank you so much for joining Pretty Petty Politics. Want to thank the NAACP Houston branch for sharing today with us, as well as our special guests and you, our viewers. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.